our leadership journeys. And in that environment, I shared what were the defining moments in my own personal leadership journey. And similar to Baleka, I think my upbringing and my childhood was absolutely definitive and determined really where I am today. My upbringing in the church and observing leadership in that environment between my parents, my being brought up by parents who were activists, and also my being brought up by parents who had an absolute passion and a courage for community service. So I think that we simply cannot ignore that past that has shaped us. I also spoke about the importance of service in the way that we exercise our leadership, and that at all times we lead to serve a team, a group, an organization, a community, a country, or even just humanity at large, and that we should really seriously emphasize the importance of service in what we do. And underpinning that, the importance of ethical leadership, a leadership that is founded on very strong values and ethics and a sense of right and wrong. And so I thought to myself, well, now that there is this particular discussion, what dimension of my leadership journey would I like to share with this audience? And what aspect would I like to perhaps further disclose about my leadership experience? And I thought to myself that I would like to share with this group, because I have been so much part of the university for over 15 years, so much part of the university governance environment, and it's been simply the most rewarding leadership experience that I've ever had than any other environment that I've operated in. I've operated in the private sector for many years, in the NGO sector, but my experience in the university cannot compare in terms of character development, in terms of forging and strengthening my leadership craft. And so I thought that because this is the environment that has given that to me, I'd like to share what I would describe as the hidden face of leadership. And I think it's purely coincidental that the display outside, the artistic display outside, is talking about faces, because I thought that I would theme my initial contribution around what are the hidden aspects of leadership. And the hidden face of leadership for me are those aspects that we don't talk about, those aspects that are the struggle that you have within yourself, the struggle that you have within yourself to be a better leader, to be a better mother, and that which we do not talk about because possibly we're ashamed to talk about it. And I thought that in an environment like this, let us give it a face and legitimize it and say, what has that been? And I just thought I would share, within the context of the university, what that has been for me. Firstly, one of the most challenging aspects of being a governance leader in a university environment for me personally has been what I would describe as inattention. For every key decision that we've made in this university, it has caused incredible tension between my head and my heart. It's caused incredible tension between being firm and being human, incredible tension between being tough and just caring for people. Every single year that I chaired the remuneration committee of this university and we go for the wage mandate, it causes enormous tension in me. Because on the one level, I look at what this university requires to be financially sustainable, and on the other level, I care about the people that we pay and I care about the employees. And that causes such incredible tension within me. And I think that that is very much part of the leadership package that we should disclose and accept, because out of that, I think we become better people, we become more caring people. The other area of tension that I experience, and I think it's a collective tension possibly, is really where we look at student fees. Every single year we have to look at a mandate for student fees, and every year you think about the learners, you think about their mothers, you think about their fathers. And on the other hand, you've got to balance that with the financial sustainability of this university, and to make sure that this university can continue to execute its mandate of being academically excellent, of being innovative in research, of being critically engaged in society. And those are the tensions that one experiences in being involved in the governance of this university. But that's fine, because out of tension, we become better people, we become more caring people, we have a character that takes into consideration all the various stakeholders of this university. So tension is what I call the hidden face of leadership. And particularly for me, I think being a woman, I find it so extremely challenging when I have to be involved in a collective decision that involves other women, especially if it's a difficult decision. Baleka Mbete and I recently had a really difficult decision that involved a woman. And we literally would talk about it, say, no, let's sleep over it. We would sleep over it. We'd come back, we'd talk about it, we'd say, let's sleep over it. And it literally took us a whole weekend of talking, sleeping over it, talking, sleeping over it, before we actually made a decision. Because at the end of the day, the outer facade that people see is the fact that a decision has been made. But the inner struggle that has led to that decision is something that is not spoken about. And I just thought that I should share that in an environment where you've got multiple interest groups, you've got student leadership, you've got union leadership, you've got staff leadership, you've got academic leadership, you've got a very strong alumni. And then out there, you've got donors, you've got a community, a whole university stakeholder community, and you are constantly balancing the needs of that whole stakeholder community and trying to make the right decisions for this university. There is tension. So beyond the facade of our collective leadership looking confident, the reality of it is that it is challenging, it is testing, but it is extremely rewarding. And when I say it's fun, I mean it in that sense, that it has just been an extremely rewarding environment. And every part of my leadership journey is inextricably linked with me being a woman. Because I will, and those people who know me will say, I will say at a meeting, chaps, I have to go pick up my kids. Let's get this meeting going now. It's 4 o'clock, I have to do this. And people will understand it because that is part of who I am. And I think that my leadership journey is very much linked to the fact that I'm a woman, and I'm happy with that, and I'm really proud of it. But it's also linked to the fact that, for me, the university is an environment of service, an environment of service to South Africa, to build that skills base, but also to build future leaders, leaders who won't just be employees, but people who can think, who can innovate, who can create knowledge. And I think that maybe because I'm a woman, the head and the heart is very much part of the way I lead. And I'm happy with that. And the tension that one constantly lives with, and the vulnerability that one has to experience when there are testing environments in this university, has shaped one's character, has just made one so much stronger and so much more willing to serve on an ongoing basis. So as testing as this environment is, it's exciting, it's absolutely riveting. And so to all the women within this university community, and even those outside within the broader community, I say that we should never avoid difficult situations, we should never avoid challenge, we should never avoid discomfort, because that is where we experience the most growth as people, and that's where our leadership craft becomes honed, and that's where we can make our better contribution. So those are my initial comments, Madam Chair. I hope I've stuck to your 10 minutes.
Who said that being a program director won't have tension? I am going to have a very tense time now to announce to you that Ms. Mbete has to leave at some point soon. So don't be alarmed when you see her stand up and leave. It is because of other prior engagements and also the fact that the flight is quite soon. So anytime...
I'll explain why I have to go. My last born is leaving tonight for 5 years. And I've been away from home since Tuesday, doing door-to-door in the Eastern Cape. So I just think I have to go have dinner with him, take him to the airport. That's the only reason that could take me away from here.
This is a way of saying, chaps, I have to go. They are kids. Well, before Ms. Losi takes over, and we'll just excuse you, we've noted, whenever you are ready, we'll excuse you.
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much for your participation. We are greatly honored as the
Thank you very
university.
much.
I want also to make an announcement that if you've heard Big Brother is watching, Big Sister is watching. The legislature of KZN, since this is where we are, is represented in secret in this audience in the name of a certain honorable member, Ms. Peggy Ngonyeni. Let us welcome her. Ms. Losi.
Thank you so much, Program Director. I think it is, got excited when I got an invitation to say, come back to UKZN. And, but the panelist, it's what shakes me most. But I think it is quite an honor for me to share a podium with such great phenomenal women. And I think also we are also learning, because I'm taking notes as the previous speakers have spoken. And I want to agree with them on a number of issues that they have raised. And I think earlier when you put as to who I am and where I'm coming from, I want to agree also with the previous speakers that what made me to be where I am, it was not consciously to say, I am going to go and join the ANC Youth League, I am going to go and, be the member of the ANC, but it was the experiences that one had undergone at that time, because you had as a child experience UDF members being arrested in the night. You had to run for cover when you find hippos and mellow yellows in your own street, and young boys who you would not know whether, because of the circumstances at that time, they will just rise outside of the hippo and point a finger. And when they point at you, you must know it doesn't matter whether you did anything or not. But it was a survival tactic for them, because they must get something to eat. And once you are pointed, then you are arrested. And having experienced that, it then alerted me that, look, there's something wrong. There is something that the country is going through. And you then go to school and you find courses. You say, oh, okay, now there's a link of the community struggles and what we are confronted with at school because of the type of education that we had to undergo. And I'm just saying this is what shaped a person without voluntarily saying this is what I want to do consciously, but you find yourself there. But also having moved and joined the South African National Defence Force under the Air Force Wing, the time when I became part of the Defence Force, it was during the integration phases. During 1996, when we just had a democratic government in 1994, having been placed in Bloemfontein in the Free State, Bloemspruit, it was the most challenging time, because at that time, the transformation in the Defence Force was a difficult matter. In the Free State, white colonels, brigadiers, and believed that that territory is theirs, the Free State. It was exclusively what they can hang on to it to remain in power. And as the only female black in my own department, with white men only, literally white, the challenges of being that young woman, black, was that, you come to a place where everyone has their seats, see, in a dining room. And you literally had to stand because you just came and no man will stand up for you. And the language, they will speak the Afrikaans, whether you understand it or not. They will give instructions in Afrikaans whether you understand it or not. And you're in a military environment, you have to comply. Complaints are a later thing. First, it's compliance. And I think that experience shaped me, because it taught me exactly what the previous speakers have said, that you have to go through those difficulties in life, and they shape the person that you become. And at that time, one would also recall that politics were not allowed in the Defense Force. Now we have trade unions. But at that time, there were no trade unions. You comply, you complain later. And the worst experience of my life there was because I'm a mother of 2 beautiful daughters. And it was at the time when I was pregnant with my first child, and having spoken to a female colonel, I said, look, I will be giving birth, I need a transfer. They said, no, we're working on it with the HQ. When there was a transfer, then after I gave birth, there was no longer a transfer. And I asked for me to bring the child because we were staying in the military base. And having agreed with the colonel of the base to bring the child, funny, when inspections had to take place, you know, at 6 a.m. you stand for inspection with the child ready, everything is pashash. So the child had to stand for inspection at 6 a.m. in the morning. Yes, the bed must be, your room must be well cleaned, tucked in and everything. My child was in a pram waiting to be inspected. And you know, it was comforting because I've got my child with me. But the worst thing that I did not even think that I was going to be confronted with was when the warrant officer came as he was doing inspection. So he says to me, it's a man, he says to me, what a beautiful baby. And he tells me about how he loves babies and how he takes care of his domestic workers' children. But he says to me, you know, this is a military base. I said, yes, warrant officer. And there are no children allowed here. So I'm giving you 48 hours to make sure that this child is not here. And I'm coming from Port Elizabeth. I don't have a budget to get to the next bus to take my child home. And 48 hours, depending on what day that he's telling you that, you're supposed to be at work. So how do you arrange that? And, but the worst thing was to hear that, no, complaints, because as a mother, I had to make sure that this child does not cry. So you would be, you know, chuchuring and during the night, so that you don't, because this is a military base, these are single quarters. But when I learned after I've taken my child, because I could not find those that gave me permission, they disappeared until the 48 hours was over. And I've taken my child back to PE. And when I came back, I was told, no, the only reason is because some young white female complained to say, if her child can come, then also our dogs should be allowed. And I think it made me then to say, wow, I'm in a wrong environment, by the way, because these are politics now. Literally, these are politics, but you are in a military, you know, Baleka, I had a 3-page grievance, which I forwarded but was never heard, because the things that I raised were termed to be political issues, and politics were not allowed in the Defense Force. So, but those experiences are the experiences that shaped me as a woman in a very diverse environment, which has been predominantly men. And having left the Defense Force, because at some point I was telling Councillor Tembi that I had to resign. I couldn't take it anymore. Because at that point I had to choose my child and being in Bloemfontein. So I came back. And when I came back, I had to go and casual at Jet Stores until I got employed at Ford Motor Company. And getting into another male-dominated environment. Engine plant, where we make the engines of the cars that you are driving. But I must say that that environment further shaped me because it then taught me that even within men, there are men that would coach and couch you as a woman to say, yes, it is our environment, but we agree to give space so that we're able to experience. And I must say, the old generation, as much as we may say they are very patriarchal, but not all of them. Because others will look at you and say, are you able to take the space? Are you able to occupy, or you want to complain? And you then realize that here, I am not going to complain that I have this gun that I must use, but it's heavy. You know, when you shoot it, your whole body jacks. And you say, when they want to help, you say, no, I'll get strong and I'll manage. And as soon as you say, I am that woman, they then say, oh, okay, they take note of you. And I must say that we need men who are able to say, give them the hardship, allow them to go through, and because that's what shapes us beyond that. But critically, I want to say that what the previous speakers have said, humility. In any leadership position, being principled in any leadership position, that's what takes you through. Respect of others, that's what takes you through. Because the tendency is that when we are in leadership position, we think we own people. And when we think we own people, we pass by, we don't greet. Ubuntu, gets eroded. And you forget that that is not permanent. You don't understand what the future holds, what may bring you down. And you will find those people that you never greeted there. And I think leadership is about humility, is about respect of others, as my colleagues have said, is about Ubuntu, And I want to say that we must, as women, also begin to appreciate. For an example, here in the panelists, we have Baleka Mbete, who have walked, the miles, kilometers before us. And you learn from their experiences. And you have Abosis Pam at this particular level of the academics, where you say, wow, you see them here, you think it has been easy. Yeah. But also what I want to agree with Pam is that where you said, because I was writing, tension is the hidden face of leadership. Agreeing with that, because people assume that you just came to a decision. People think that you're heartless. You just meet and you say, okay, this is so-and-so, people are numbers. We respect people are not numbers. People are not, what you put a pen and a paper and you write a name. People are human beings. And when leadership has to take decisions, it is not because they just slept and arrived at the decision. It is because it has been thought through and guided by those principles in terms of what needs to be done. Because in any decision that you take, you do it for this one differently. You must know there are others that are watching. So it tests your leadership character. It tests Uti, out of this, are you going to look a person in the face and say, well, perhaps we can do away with this one, but when the other one comes, what are you going to say? And I think in terms of humility, Mambaleka, you read Facebook. I'm on Facebook, but I went in and I went out. I closed that account, I came back. Because of what people write about yourselves. During this difficult time in the Federation, you go to Facebook, not to write, but just to check, you know those that will be critical. And you say, this is what people think of me. Because people do not understand the processes that you had to follow, the very intense discussions that had to take place and before a decision is arrived at. So people critique you, but because you humble yourself, you don't go and respond. You know, because you are a principled leader, you say, okay, it's their space, it's their opinion, but you know that that decision is a thought-through decision. So, but you will find others, they want you to mud yourself, you know, in that social media. And so we refrain, we say, okay, we will watch, we'll open tweet accounts, but we won't tweet, we will read what people are writing, so that you are able also to say, okay, this is what people think, and how do you then, beyond what they have written, go back to say, correctly respond, but you don't want to also say, but you are correct, you know, and impose things to people, but take them through. So I want to say in concluding that as women, we need to really walk through the doors. Don't expect people to do favors for us, but say, I am where I am because I deserve. I am where I am because I have a capacity. It is not because of quota. The reason women are in leadership, it's not because there's a quota. You know, there is this tendency of wanting to say, no, a male leader can lead, but a woman, we must first, you know, take her through some processes. And I ask this question, what barometer are you using to measure that capacity between a man and a woman? Why a woman is not always ready, but a man can wake up tomorrow, sing a mass, and take leadership, and we must just salute and follow. So never, ever, it doesn't matter critiques, doesn't matter how critical people may say about you, you know, but inja ikongote ambayo. So take those critiques and make a reflection and say, if really these are my weaknesses, how do I improve on them? But never say, because they have been so critical of me, I'm resigning, I'm going to keep quiet, I'm going to put my head on the sand and pretend as if the world does not exist, because you must know then you will never be able to rise up again. Thank you, Chair.
I have pleasure, on behalf of the university, to thank you graciously for the honor that you've given us at the university. These are the stories we promise, and I sure hope that the young researchers were listening, that the major task that we are going to do now is to document women's experiences and to make sure that we make a mark, we document it, and we publicize it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I thought that after the whole expose on the military as well, I might as well use a commanding voice. But Professor Vival, you will agree with me that viva, humanities viva. Because otherwise, this format that Professor Potgieter designed would never have materialized if it wasn't for humanities. Yeah. Yes. And in those words, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much. It's quite I'm almost just listening to the different stories makes me feel like I just want to sit back and process it and try and see what we understand from it. So maybe in my 3 minutes, I'll try, because as I was listening to the experiences and analysis of the leadership journeys being described, I was seeing my own reflected in there. And so I thought about maybe I can capture it in 3 ideas, which also resonate with my own journey. The first, I think that women's leadership journeys are unplanned. I cannot imagine that when I was in grade 1 and my first day at school, or in the year I was in matric, that I imagined that I would be a professor or that I would be in a leadership of a university. I grew up in Grahamstown, and you could walk to Rhodes University, but at the time I wanted to go to university, I couldn't actually go there, and had to come all the way to Durban, which I resented at the time very much. But so if I reflect on being a dean or a DVC, that all the leadership positions that I've had, I can't ever remember that I planned for them. And as I listen to I think women often don't think of a planned process by which they engage in leadership. Maybe the second point I want to emphasize, or that comes from my own experiences that I also see resonate in other women's experiences, is that you don't actually ever really balance work and family and study. You actually manage shifting priorities. So I can remember in the 1 year when I had to write an honors exam, I was in the hospital because my son had burst his eardrum, and I was sitting with my notes with him in my arms. And so I think that for many women that I know, that different things take priority at different times, and you make those decisions. So I was listening to how you manage having your children in the process of that journey, and how it impacts the choices you will make to focus on or not focus on. And I have 2 sons, and I remember when they were growing up, at one time, they rated me 3 out of 10 for being a mother. So I must say now, though, they grudgingly feel very proud, but they would never tell me. So I think, I couldn't be the mother that was there for every soccer match, but I was there when it really mattered for them, or I hope I was there when it really mattered to them. So I think you juggle, it's shifting, it's never an essential, it's always family, or it's always work. It's not true that it happens like that, if we're really honest with ourselves, because you do give priority to different things in different moments. I think the third I would say is that as I listen to the stories and I think about myself, the journey of women leaders are always forged against the grain. And what I mean by that, it's almost always never expected that you'll be the leader or a leader, and that you always are doing it often in a context in which you go against, in my experience, I would say, culturally, it was growing up in a very conservative Indian family and community. It was not expected, not only that you wouldn't be that you would be a leader, but even that you'd really be educated very much. If I think about my generation of women, so it's not an accident that there are so few women professors, because if I take women of my generation, there were very few who would have been actively encouraged to have pursued that as a dream or something that you wanted, or you wouldn't even have thought about it. So yes, I would say I've always been a bit of a rebel, which was always sometimes a challenge, but I think women leaders do forge their leadership against the grain. And finally, I think this very forum and presentation shows how I think women forge their leadership through constant reflection.